It's a different world now. When our journalism class started this semester, we went into the city of Halifax to interview people and tell their stories. Now, we are looking onto quieter streets while social distancing, but we still have stories to tell.
So we've worked together online to tell stories of our experience with the COVID-19 pandemic. Some of us have traveled home to other provinces. Some of us are staying in, observing the changes to our world through our front doors, our keyboards, our phones.
Some of us continue to work traveling through changed cities, and that is where we begin, with those still opening for business, manning the cash, or trying to stay afloat.
I'm Talia Meade here on Spring Garden Road in Halifax. I checked in with two people still working during the pandemic, one whose job is considered essential and the other whose job is not.
I work at Pet Value, and we've had record days at both of our stores these past weekends, and it's not slowing down. It's been very, very busy. People are buying a lot. They're buying in bulk because they're really scared that we're gonna close. So it's been kind of crazy these past couple days for us. I'm not super nervous. We do have a lot of precautions set in place to keep the staff safe. It's not an ideal situation, but it is what I have to do to pay my rent. So I don't really have a choice. My employers made it very clear that if I was uncomfortable in any way that I didn't have to work, and some of my coworkers have made that choice, but that's not something that I can do.
Unlike Pet Value, Scotiabank is considered an essential service. Banker Carol Bouchard says she still feels safe coming into work.
We have stickers set up throughout the whole branch so people are 6 feet away from us. Hand sanitizer everywhere, cleaning after every single customer comes in. Next couple of days, we're setting up plexiglass for our tellers. We have a lot of people that are respecting the boundaries. Some people are joking more about it too, which is kind of nice because it's sort of making the situation a bit comical in a sense because it's very new to everybody.
Pet Value has since reduced its hours, giving Landry peace of mind. Pharmacies are some of the few businesses that will not be allowed to close in the pandemic. Ilyas Kurbanov has a story about how one owner is trying to keep staff safe.
I'm Ilyas Kurbanov, and when I'm not at school, I'm here working at the downtown pharmacy. When COVID-19 started to become serious, everyone was worried, but my boss, Jennifer Chafe, stepped up as an essential worker for the community. Head pharmacist and owner Jennifer Chafe says she's constantly thinking how to protect her staff and the community around the peninsula.
Mainly it's about social distancing, so the pharmacies and the cashiers all have plexiglass, basically like sneeze guards when you go to a restaurant with a buffet in it. So that's there to obviously protect, because not everybody's going to know that they might be sick. They may just think it's seasonal allergies. We do have policies in, so we have a room that if there's an employee or a customer comes in, we take them right to a particular room that's easy to sanitize. We would protect ourselves with an N95 mask and more than likely the gloves as well. We do have little decals that help show the 2 meters between people.
Besides the safety precautions, the COVID-19 binder ensures everyone's safety with updates around the store. For example, at the moment, all non-essential services are suspended within the store, whether it's lottery or photo services. Security of all is Chafe's #1 priority.
Starting soon, we'll be getting actual thermometers to check every employee when they come in for a fever, so it's going to be a non-touch thermometer. As soon as we find out we have had an employee specifically that has it, the store will be emergency shut down. Me as an owner and a pharmacist, I basically stay in the store to facilitate transfers to other stores for that 24-hour period until we were up and running again.
So far, Chafe's preparations have worked, but running a busy pharmacy makes her constantly think about the community. There's a certain amount of pressure on the frontline workers, and Stephen Wentzell has that story.
Hi, I'm Stephen Wentzell. I work on the front line in a pharmacy in Halifax's downtown North End. Today, I'll take you on a trip through a day in the life of an essential employee. Come on, let's check it out.
Coming to work at the pharmacy looks much different than a month ago. Doors are locked to the public. We're all geared up with N95 masks and nitrile gloves that must be sprayed after any interaction. I never would have thought I'd be simultaneously an essential worker who does not earn a livable wage. I'm afraid to come to work because what if I get sick? But I'm more afraid of not coming to work and being in precarious employment and housing. From 9 to 5, I do transactions through the door. I'm the go-between because keeping the pharmacist healthy is crucial. I often have to raise my voice to get people to stand 6 feet apart. I'm not a very natural bad cop. Having masks, gloves, and no shortage of hand sanitizer or isopropyl alcohol helps me feel safe at work until it's time to take the personal protective equipment off and venture out to do deliveries. Deliveries are tricky. We do them for folks who can't get to the pharmacy themselves to pick them up. But what if I go into their building as an unwitting carrier? I think about these things every time I venture out. And while all these things weigh on my mind, I think what I learned most in such a stressful and uncertain time is that the most important thing we can do is try to make it easier for others.
Working at the pharmacy during a pandemic certainly comes with its stressors, but the people working hard around me inspire me to keep at it, just like journalists who are navigating these uncharted waters. Kheira Morellon has more of that story.
I am Kheira Morellon, and as a journalism student, I was interested in how journalists had to change their routine due to COVID-19. The Coast magazine went solely online when ad revenues for its printed weekly disappeared. Morgan Mullen now covers the entertainment beat from home.
The listings part of the job specifically has been quite different because instead of, paying attention to who's playing at the Seahorse on Friday, I'm now trying to gather, who's doing virtual, online things.
But Mullen is now the medical reporter too.
How we need kind of two kinds of reporting as COVID continues. So obviously we need to know death counts and how to wash your hands and what's the latest thing that McNeil is saying about precautions and stuff like that. That's all super vital and important.
Mullen thinks new ways of gathering news may not go away when the virus does. CBC reporter Colleen Jones is the type of journalist who gets close to the action, but now she finds herself having to take a step back, 6 feet back. From an upswing in deliveries to a shortage of dumbbells, COVID-19 is making the stories, but the distancing is the challenge.
I was more than 2 meters away from them trying to get the shots, and so you're so used to trying to get shots that make a viewer feel like they're there with the person. Now everything's so wide it doesn't feel right, yet if you can find the emotion of the person and a good story, maybe the visuals aren't as important right now.
As reporters now scour online to find their next story, Jones thinks that going out in your community is still the best way to find them. This new normal is making news organizations be more creative to find their stories. It is also doing the same thing to a community theater. Hollie Uffindell tells us more.
I'm Hollie Uffindell here in the only clean corner of my bedroom in Timberley, Nova Scotia. Like many others, I have been binge-watching Netflix while trapped inside during the COVID-19 pandemic. While we're all watching films from our beds and couches, one small local independent cinema is struggling with what to do.
Carbon Arc, Halifax's only independent cinema, had to close its doors last month.
I was thinking that we were small and we could maybe carry on, and then soon after I had those thoughts, I was like, no, it's better not to take the risk.
But the buffers that are working for hardened moviegoers from old favorites to online offerings are not working for daily.
I'm not feeling fulfilled by the internet connection. So although I spend many hours on the internet and using my computer every day, it's not how I want to present work. And so definitely am bringing some of my personal thoughts into my decisions for the cinema.
The 74-seat art house cinema takes a social approach to moviegoing, creating a tight-knit community with their audience. Rather than screening films online, Daily is looking at creative ways to bring Carbon Arc's community of film lovers together.
We are looking at different activities that we can engage with the community online, and including animation project where artists can create aspects and we'll bring it all together. I feel sort of more excited about creating and connecting with an audience that way a little more so than presenting work that might not get the reception that I would love it to receive. We are passionate about bringing cinema to Halifax, and that is not going to go away, and we will do our best to bring it back when we can.
In the meantime, how about an herbal tea to kill that virus? Even though it doesn't work, it doesn't stop people from trying to sell you a cure. Cameron Towner looks at the long history of pandemic quackery.
Cure-alls, snake oil, quackery. These are the names given to products which tend to appear during times like now. Simply put, they are treatments which are meant to ease people's fears while falsely advertising themselves as proper cures. Not all are the same, however. While some prey on people's fears to make a quick buck, others just overstate their benefits. You may have already seen them popping up in your news feeds. From drinking water every 15 minutes, to gargling salt water, taking vitamin D, drinking silver, and doing cocaine? They've all been touted as COVID-19 killers. None of them are. This comes as no surprise that Jane Jenkins, author of an article tracing the effect of the 1918 influenza epidemic on the fledgling public health system.
So I'm an historian of science and medicine. There were I think 3 different types of treatments. General ones that were attitudinal, maintaining a positive attitude and getting exercise. The second category would be the products that had been manufactured, the ones that were advertised in newspapers that you could go to a shop and buy. And then the third category of treatments were those that you could make at home, the folk remedies that had been passed down. A harsh tasting thing would make sense that would kill a germ. And they thought at that time that influenza was a germ.
Manufactured cures dominated the ad space across the country. One that pops up again and again is Johnson's Anodyne Liniment. The ingredients: 18.5% alcohol, 6.25% ether, and a half gram of opium. Although it wouldn't cure you of your Spanish flu, for 50 cents a bottle, it would certainly numb you.
Well, and that was quite common. That appeared in newspapers all over the region. I've seen exactly the same ads. And they say that it really does double duty because you can spray it up your nose or in your mouth, and you can take a little glug of it too. In a time when you feel that there's so uncertainty and there's so many unknowns, we grasp at anything that is perceived to be something helpful, something useful, something protective. And people in 1918 were attracted to similar sorts of claims the same way that we are 102 years later.
I want to move on and just talk about now. So 102 years later, we find ourselves in another pandemic and with another outbreak of fake cures. Unfortunately, that there are unscrupulous people out there providing misinformation around whether it's products or procedures that actually can, for instance, boost your immune system or cure you from COVID-19. This information is wrong and it is dangerous. As of now, there is no cure, no matter what passes across your screen.
Next up, Brooklyn Connolly talks to a man whose cure for isolation is to take a picture of it.
Brooklyn Connolly here in Halifax, alone in my 3-bedroom apartment. At this point, even video calling my friends seems to grow the distance between us. Halifax photographer Matt Williams has found a way to shorten the distance. His project, Far Away Nearby, has helped him say hi to his friends and to look at our situation through a different lens.
And I came up with the idea of driving around and making portraits of my friends so that I could have time to hang out with them from a distance, but also make sure that I'm still making photographs. I'm shooting with, this is the other camera. I'm shooting with this Mamiya RB67. And I don't know if you'll be able to see anything if I go like this in the camera that I'm shooting. But usually if someone's getting their photo made with me, it looks like this. I can process C41, color film, and black and white film at home. It's a bit weird because you can't hug your friends or be that close to them, but and besides the obvious topic of conversation being usually one thing, it hasn't been that weird, and I have been able to feel connected. It's weird to try to remember what you did before now.
A picture is worth 1,000 words, and 1,000 software engineers want to take a crack at cracking the virus. Avery Mullen reports.
I'm Avery Mullen, coming to you from my home in rural Nova Scotia, and like most people, I'm staying home and counting on the internet to keep me connected. But one Nova Scotia man hopes that computers can do more than just help us communicate.
Akram Al-Lotumi is the director of ShiftKey Labs, a technology sandbox at Dalhousie University. Now, he's organizing a hackathon to find high-tech solutions to the COVID-19 crisis.
It's an event where we bring together people from different experiences, skills, and backgrounds. For example, professionals and students from that have a background of business or IT or engineering or medicine and nursing to come together and form teams that complement their own the skills and ideate and go through the ideation process.
He hopes that by the end of the event, participants will have workable ideas for how to do things like measure people's temperatures using their cell phones, or stave off quarantine loneliness. Dr. Samina Abidi knows firsthand how software can help curtail infectious diseases. She is part of a Dalhousie research group that looks at the increasing role software plays in fighting outbreaks.
So there have been a number of algorithms, especially the deep learning, the neural networks, natural language processing, which have been there for a while. But now we are seeing the application of those algorithms to the health data.
Akram Al-Lotumi is also organizing an international version of the hackathon, which will include participants from his home country of Yemen. But for now, the Nova Scotia version will be held remotely on May 4th and 5th. And while some are focused on hacking the virus, others are busy staying in top shape physically. Sarah Moore reports.
My name's Sarah Moore, and I'm here at the Beachville Lakeside Timberley Trail for a 14-kilometer run on this nice sunny morning.
I used to race track and field and cross-country competitively, and now run mostly for fun. In the past couple weeks, running has been the only time I've been leaving the house. It allows me to get space from news of the pandemic and instead focus on myself. Competitive runners focus on winning, but COVID-19 has stolen that. No crowd, no races, no more focus. Racing seasons have been disrupted by COVID-19. Many races have been postponed. Cal DeWolf won the Scotiabank Blue Nose Marathon in Halifax last summer and qualified to run the Boston Marathon this April.
It's something I've wanted to do since junior high school.
Now the race has been rescheduled for this fall. He says it's hard to say how prepared he'll be. Other races have been cancelled completely. Alex Neufer was supposed to run the New York City Half Marathon on March 15th, but the race was called off. He's still running his usual 6 days a week, about 100 kilometers per week, but now things are different. It's the first time in his life that he doesn't have a specific goal in mind.
Obviously, I still want to go run every day, regardless of whether I have something to actually train for.
He's hoping to race a marathon in the fall, but he's not optimistic.
If we go back to normal life, I feel like events like that still might be canceled. Just too many people in one big area, in one area at one time.
To replace races, Neufer plans to do time trials in the coming months, timed runs by himself.
makes up for it a little bit, but it's still not the same, obviously. That's kind of something that I know a lot of people are trying to do, just to have something to be motivated to do.
For now, that's as close as he'll get to a real race, far away from cameras and crowds. Our school, University of King's College, worked quickly to shut down the campus. The last things to be shut down were the residences. Alex Johnson worked there until the end.
On March 13th, the University of King's College asked students to move out of residence as a precaution against the spread of COVID-19. And over the 15 days that followed, the Alex Hall front desk stayed open as the rest of campus shut down. I'm Alex Johnson. I worked there as a student supervisor. We had more shifts to fill since it was too dangerous for some staff to work during a pandemic. The desk operated 24 hours a day, so I worked more overnight shifts than usual. And it was hard to not think about the pandemic. Every shift started with sanitizing everything you might touch. I worried I might be an asymptomatic carrier of the virus and end up giving it to everyone working there and everyone leaving. We had contact with a lot of people.
I felt pretty apprehensive because I have gotten illnesses from working at residence before. But on the other hand, I really did need money, knowing that soon I would be unemployed and unable to find new employment. So I was going in essentially to assess whether or not I could continue to work there in a full capacity.
Shortly after, Pilar Guinaud de Boismenu decided the money wasn't worth the risk. It wasn't until the gym closed, the library closed, and the registrar's office started working from home that extra safety measures were put in place. And that was only after I had brought forward an email outlining what another building had done for its frontline workers. According to campus safety officer Ian Wagshall, that's how the system is supposed to work.
A good safety culture works from the bottom up. And it has people who, like you, especially at the supervisory level, because that's usually where the person who's supervising the frontline workers sees the problem first. And then they, I see a problem, and they shoot it up. And then someone says, okay, yeah, let's go, let's deal with it.
University of King's College President Bill Leahy said that while these measures could have been done sooner, their biggest safety measure was emptying the residence and ending in-person classes.
Well, it may be that we didn't get to that as soon as we needed to get to that. All of these specific issues would have been much, much worse if we hadn't done the work the previous 2 weeks to allow us to make structural decisions like emptying the residences to the extent that we could and moving courses online.
The Alex Hall front desk closed on March 28th. At this time, 5 students remain. For those students who left the residence and the city, they often faced a worrisome trip home. Natalie McMillan tells us about boarding a plane during a pandemic.
My name is Natalie McMillan. On March 18th, Porter Airlines announced that they were suspending service until June. I was at university in Halifax. My family and I made a decision to book a flight on March 20th to get me home to Ontario before more flights and travel were affected. My friend Tessa Oxtoby had made the same decision, to head home from the University of Edinburgh in Scotland.
We were bracing ourselves for the hours enclosed with the strangers who may be infected. The world was being bombarded with the news of the spreading virus. What we didn't know is how differently travelers in 2 countries in the same week were taking that news. This is the Halifax airport at 5 p.m. on a Friday. Even the Starbucks was closed. Tessa arrived at a bustling Edinburgh airport.
Honestly, nothing was different. That's the surprising part. In the UK, they literally, no one was wearing masks, no one was doing anything. It was so normal, and there was many people traveling.
Tessa stood out.
when I had my masks and gloves and my Purell, everyone was like, relax, like, you're such a nerd.
Something that would become commonplace just 2 weeks later. It was a tense time in the air, the warning to stay away from others while sitting 3 inches apart from strangers. While you will never know what the passenger next to you is carrying on the flight, flights around the world have slowed down to a trickle, airlines and passengers are much more aware, and fewer people are taking the chance of being on an airplane where someone could be carrying this virus. We were both very lucky, touching down without the virus, and we're glad that this trip is behind us. Staying prepared and safe in this time brings a whole new meaning when someone you live with is high risk. Emily McRae takes us there.
I'm Emily McRae. I'm done my 14 days of quarantine, and I'm heading home to Dartmouth. In my family, the person we're all worried about is my dad, Doug McRae. His bronchitis, along with his asthma and diabetes, put him in the higher risk categories for coronavirus. He doesn't want to be on camera, but he's the one who saw this coming. He works in the cargo shipping industry and saw the signs as China shut down.
We were exporting lobsters into China, and on January 22nd, the market basically collapsed overnight.
4 days after, on January 26th, my family started preparing.
I was out on a Sunday afternoon and decided I'd go and take a look to see if I could pick up some surgical masks.
We had to visit 8 stores before we could find masks. My parents started slowly buying extra food, and by the end of February, they had a 2-week supply, which they have been topping up as they go through food. Now we're making sure that nobody in the house gets sick.
I live with a person that has 2 underlying conditions.
We've really basically been isolating in here, aside from grocery runs.
Katie is the grocery shopper of the family, and she's very vigilant.
I don't bring a purse like I normally would. I have a list. I put the list in the order that I know that's in the grocery store.
Doug has been social distancing since February. So far he's doing okay, and we're being careful to keep it that way.
To be a positive to all of this is we may end up spending a little bit more quality time with family members.
From 6 feet away, for The Signal, I'm Emily McRae.
I've been recording some music lately. It's been a great distraction from the pandemic affecting all of us. I'm not the only one though. Plenty of musicians have been using this time to write and record new music. So I spoke to a couple of maritime artists to get their perspective and see if COVID-19 has turned their bedrooms into their studios.
My name is Maddie Grace. I'm based in Halifax, Nova Scotia. I perform as a solo artist under my own name and with bands like Weekend Dads and Worst Part.
The outbreak forced Maddie to come home from tour after playing just one show. But while the virus has kept her home, it hasn't affected her creativity.
Usually it's like, have the song, get it ready, play it a whole bunch, and then eventually record, like whether it be solo or with a band or whatever. So this one is more like, oh, I have an idea. What if I just do it?
Buried alive, what a time to be buried alive, what a time to be buried alive, what a time to be buried alive, what a time.
Why not do another 2 releases and have them out and ready by like the middle of the summer? I have no reason not to. I'm not waiting for anyone to give me the okay whether or not I can do that.
In her studio, Maddie has a microphone, an amplifier, a pedal board, a few guitars, and a mixer. Luka Malotesnich records under the pseudonym Obliterator and plays bass in Crawl Space, a hardcore band based in St. John, New Brunswick. His studio consists of no more than a guitar on his bed and a microphone set up on a chair.
Having to wrangle up my family is kind of a big hassle. There have been a few times where I've had to be like, I'm sorry, Mom, I got an idea and I have to record it right now.
Physical distancing has given artists plenty of time to write and record new music and use things just laying around their house to help, like hair ties that I used to fashion my duvet to my wardrobe to make a vocal booth. Or a blanket for it. But recording is not the only way that musicians are making the most out of physical distancing. Josh Hoffman tells us the story about how an open mic night has gone virtual.
Hey, it's Josh Hoffman, still here in Halifax. Public health orders to social distance and the provincial state of emergency mean music venues in Halifax like the Carlton are all shut down, and you and your friends can't go out and see live music. However, some Halifax musicians have found an audience on social media, which means you can watch from the comfort of your own home.
Today I put my makeup on in prison. There's a killer.
Nearly 200 video performances have been posted to a Facebook group called Halifax Virtual Open Mic since March 16th.
Whatever you want. Hey baby, que paso?
The group was created when social distancing orders were put in place by provincial health officials last month, and now has more than 1,100 members.
I started the Facebook page to encourage social distancing, but also create a place where people could feel inspired and motivated to create during this time.
The musicians are performing all different types of music, including original songs.
And this song is called Eat Every Pastry.
Covers.
So what do you do?
And some songs you've probably never heard before and may seem a bit foreign.
I'll just share a bhajan I've been learning on the harmonium. And so it's called Vaishnava Vigyapati.
The response so far has been unexpected, but very encouraging. It's things like this that show people really do value the arts.
Even though people are physically far apart, there's a sense of coming together. It's amazing being able to connect in this way, like something that wouldn't have been possible like 30 years ago if this had happened. You know, people would have been more isolated.
Ariana Armstrong received an invite to the open mic group from her stepdaughter. The lifelong musician used the opportunity to practice the flute, which she only started last fall. But she has been pleasantly surprised by the other performances.
It's very inspiring to see people's feelings and emotions come out through their music, and some of the songs I've seen are really funny. Some of them are really deep and uplifting, and so there's something there for everyone, for every mood.
Everyone wants something to relate to, something that will make them feel. That's what makes us human, and that's what music does.
Katie and the other musicians have come together in an unusual way, just like us.
From working on the front lines of the pandemic, traveling home, or upping creativity to survive, these are our stories. All of our lives have changed in recent weeks, but how we carry on is what counts.
We wanted to bring you stories of people pressing on despite the challenges we're all facing in these strange times. A little slice of how lives have changed, and of people adapting. We had to adapt. As you can see, we've had to do some things differently.
You've probably had to do some things differently too, and we wanted to let you know that you're not alone. Even though we need to be apart from each other right now, we are all in this together.
From the Signal. Thank you for watching our stories.